The government is eyeing to begin the vaccination of children aged 5 to 11 by next month. Vaccines are, Carlito Galvez says, the reformulated Pfizer doses for the age group are expected to arrive in the country at the end of this month. With children still unprotected against COVID-19, they remain vulnerable to catching the virus. In the U.S., hospitalization rates among kids are soaring. Joining me now is Dr. Lulu Bravo. She is a pediatric infectious diseases specialist, also the executive director of the Philippine Foundation for Vaccination. Good to see you again, Doctor.
Good evening, David, and thank you for having me tonight.
Well, Doctor, the Philippine Pediatric Society is being quoted as saying that about 12% of COVID cases are seen in the pediatric age group, and while majority of cases are mild, there is no denying this is causing so much anxiety and stress among parents. An experience, I understand, you can identify with. But what I would like to ask, Doctor, is that what do the data on hospitalizations among children, at least that you know of, are telling you?
Well, we know for a fact that the best protection for our children is actually to surround them with vaccinated people, because viral load, meaning to say, yung dami ng mikrobyo na maaring pumunta sa children also affects the severity of the illness. And definitely, although before dun sa Wuhan and the Alpha, Beta, Delta, there are less children being affected. With the Omicron, we are seeing more children being affected because the mutation that have occurred in this Omicron has made it possible for this virus to be more transmissible and to affect even children, even in a longer distances. Before we say, okay, you can get 6 feet or about 1 to 2 meters away. But with Omicron, even longer than 2 meters, you may be able to get it. And it is airborne, much more airborne than the other variants. So the children are actually being affected more and more. However, as I said, if they are surrounded by protected by vaccinated people, there could be less severity if in fact they do get it. And that's why we should not expose them outside as much as possible to possibly other people whom you do not know.
Right. The increasing concern for very young children getting COVID, as you would point out, Doctor, underscores the need for adults to get vaccinated to help protect those around them. Now, I guess my question is, if an adult is double vaxxed or even boosted but is not aware he or she is carrying the virus, maybe because he or she is asymptomatic or does not know of any potential exposure, what is the best way to protect our kids at home?
Again, the masking at home is very essential, especially if you came from outside and you're going inside and you have children there. Although you are vaccinated, it is also very important to still use your mask in enclosed spaces. And mind you, this is actually, even if you are vaccinated, there is no guarantee that you cannot transmit it. But of course, we always say, the scientists, the experts, look at viral load. Meaning to say, yung dami po ng mikrobyo, ng viruses, also affects the severity. So that even if you have transmitted the disease, if it is a small viral load that you transmit, kung sakali po, dahil nga kulang yung mask nyo, hindi na kayo hindi pa kayo nakaka-booster, pwede po kayo pa rin mag-transmit, but it will be smaller and therefore the severity will not be as much. That is something that, microbiologists, biologists will, I think, agree upon. That is also proven by...
Doctor, but do you know of cases of children being brought to ICUs because of COVID infections? Because this is a case happening in other parts of the globe, particularly in the United States. There's an explosion of child cases in the United States as well as in other countries. So I guess, dito ba sa Pilipinas, hindi natin na-monitor yung ganito? Or kung meron man, hindi sila ganun ka-significant?
Actually, I would cite the Pediatric Infectious Disease Society of the Philippines, PIDSP we call it, who actually manages to do registration of children. Sila yung pinibigyan ng, sinasabi mo, 12% are children, are childhood infections, diba, out of the total. And they're also monitoring the severity of these children. Now, the worst scenario is for children who are immunocompromised or whose immune system is not well developed or are really abnormal. And these are the ones with, perhaps even those HIV people, no, similar to that. Their immune system is not good. They have illnesses, comorbidities that make their immune system unable to respond well. So these are the ones that are really difficult to manage. Unlike other healthy children whose symptoms will just be like colds, parang sinipon lang, parang inubo lang, 2 or 3 days, which actually happened to my own grandson, no, 9 years old. And even I know some people 2 or 3 years old who are not able to get vaccinated yet are actually having only mild symptoms. As you said, be careful with the immunocompromised, with the very people who actually are going to have the severity, the critical care. Kaya nga po, hindi 100% lagi ang bakuna because there are people who are not able to respond well kung makakakita tayo or ma-expose sila sa mga Omicron or variants that are really mutated to such an extent that they are able to transmit very, very readily.
Doktora, just one last quick question. Sabi niyo kanina, in-emphasize niyo for parents, guardians, not to panic, to calm down. But let's talk about quickly lang managing kids either potentially exposed to an infected person or already showing symptoms of COVID-19. What should be the first things parents should keep in mind?
Well, as our DOH said, the first thing you do when you experience symptoms of colds, cough, or even fever is to isolate. Isolate the child. And of course, indeed, if they are too small, you cannot really have them all alone, right? If they are already like 7 years old and above, you might just have a single room for them. But if it is less than 7 and you need a parent to do that, then the parent, be sure the parent is vaccinated and that she is also able to, manage na she can take care of the child. If she has fever, she has to do sponge bath, punasan po siya. Now, testing will be also important to do even if the child will resist. Kasi alam niyo po, pag maliit yung bata, they will always be struggling, no? Pero it may be important to do the testing so that you can be sure that if indeed it is COVID, that you will be watching out for other signs. And we know that you will have to take care of making sure hindi siya nahihirapan huminga, di ba? Yung kanyang paghinga is still banayad and we know, we have taught parents how to count breaths per minute. Alam namin yon. And then of course, yung hindi siya hirap din na umubo na to the point na parang nangingitim siya pagka umubo, no? We have to really find out if the child is positive so that the rules for taking care of them could be managed well. Now, of course, many of those kids, I will tell you, almost 99% of those kids will not be hospitalized. They will not need any hospitalization.
And I guess,
so only those that are really severe and having some difficulty of breathing.
I guess, and I guess, Doctora, if in case the situation worsens, call your pediatrician, call your doctor for an advice. Now, Dr. Lulu Bravo, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much, and please